Okay, welcome everyone. Let's jump right into this deep dive. We've got some analysis here looking at upgrades for, well, a real icon, isn't it? The Tamiya Frog.
Oh, absolutely, a legend.
Yeah.
And yeah, our mission today is kind of simple. Get into this material and figure out why people back in the day focused so much on the Frog's front end.
Specifically the bumper, yeah.
Exactly, that front bumper. And how, a couple of specific aftermarket parts really change things up.
Okay, so we're talking the original Tamiya one versus these two vintage aftermarket ones, the CRP 3044 and the Pro-Line 4502.
That's them, yeah.
Yeah.
So the Frog itself, I mean, it felt pretty groundbreaking at the time.
It did. That ABS space frame was cool, independent suspension.
Totally ahead of the curve for an affordable kit back then. But the analysis here points out the stock bumper setup. Often it was this multi-part black plastic thing.
Right.
And compared to maybe a solid single unit, it had more flex. It could wear out under stress, the kind of bashing these cars.
Yeah.
Even Tamiya tweaked their own ORV bumpers later on, which kind of tells you something.
Okay, so that weakness, that's where the aftermarket guys saw an opening. With these dyeable white nylon ones.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets pretty neat, actually. The CRP and the Pro-Line gumpers, they weren't just bumpers. They were designed as a single molded piece, the bumper and the mount, all integrated.
Oh, okay. One piece instead of several bolted together.
Exactly. And think about what that does. You get rid of those connection points from the stock setup, so you get a much more secure fit, much more rigid.
Less wobble.
Way less wobble.
Yeah.
This integrated design, it cuts down flex massively.
Okay.
And what's interesting is that it almost acts like a little chassis stiffener right at the front.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it ties those lower suspension mounting points together more solidly. That's what the sources mean when they talk about making the front end rock solid.
Gotcha. So it's doing more than just protecting it from crashes. It's structural.
Definitely structural.
And the material itself, that dyeable nylon, why was that such a big deal compared to the stock plastic?
Oh, the material is crucial. This white nylon they used, it was just significantly tougher, more resilient than the stock ABS or whatever Tamiya used then.
How so?
Well, it's engineered differently. It's designed to flex on impact, absorb the shock, and it has this memory, they call it.
Memory?
Yeah, so it springs back to its original shape instead of just bending or staying deformed. And it resists cracking way better than, say, brittle stock plastic might.
Okay, so it bends but doesn't break, essentially.
Pretty much. Way better than maybe a metal bumper that could just bend permanently, or stock plastic that might just shatter on a hard hit. It offered really superior protection for all those, vulnerable front suspension bits.
Makes sense. And durability aside, they look different too, didn't they?
Oh, yeah, big-time difference visually. They usually had a wider profile, gave the Frog a bit more presence up front.
More aggressive.
Yeah, exactly. A more aggressive, kind of purposeful stance. And that clean, one-piece look was just neater. Plus, being dyeable white nylon. Huge.
Right, you could color match it.
Total customization.
Yeah.
Match your paint job, whatever you wanted. That was a big thing for personalizing your car back then.
Okay, so we've got better fit, actual structural improvement, way more durable, and they look cool and you can paint them. That's a lot of wins. How did this upgrade affect other parts of the car or the setups people used?
Yeah, this is where you see that ripple effect,
Yeah.
One good part influencing others. So for one thing, these bumpers often allow the body to sit a bit lower.
With the stock body mount.
Right, using the stock MR13 mount.
Yeah.
You could reduce that gap between the body and the chassis sometimes, give it that lower, sleeker, more race-ready look that people liked.
Kind of hunkered down.
Exactly. And remember that stiffer front end we talked about?
Yeah, the rock solid bit.
Well, that helps other parts work better, too.
Yeah.
Things like the MR2 radius arms, their mounting points aren't flexing around as much under load.
So they can do their job more precisely.
Potentially, yeah. You might get more consistent suspension movement, maybe better handling predictability.
Okay. And you mentioned something earlier. Was this tied into that BRAT attack square setup people talk about? What's that?
Ah, yeah, the BRAT attack. It's fascinating how these mods connect. So that setup, it basically means running the wider Tamiya BRAT tires on all four corners of the Frog.
Instead of the narrow fronts and wide rears.
Right, ditching the stock staggered setup for a square one.
Yeah.
And the analysis we look at really highlights that these wider aftermarket bumpers, like the CRP and Pro-Line, were almost, well, essential for doing that mod properly.
Why is that? Just looks.
Looks played a part, sure. They visually balance out the bigger tires up front, but more practically, they gave you the clearance you needed.
Ah, so the wider tires wouldn't rub?
Exactly. Rubbing on the suspension arms or the chassis during steering or compression. These bumpers push things out just enough. Without them, that square setup could be problematic.
Huh. Okay, so putting it all together then, these bumpers were much more than just simple replacements. They really impacted the whole front end.
They really did. These vintage parts from CRP and Pro-Line, they weren't just, swap-ins. They fundamentally boosted the Frog's durability, definitely changed its look for the better, gave it that aggressive stance, and crucially, they opened up new tuning paths, new visual options like that popular BRAT attack setup.
They let people take a classic design and really push it further.
That's it, exactly. Taking something great and making it your own, and maybe even a bit better performing in some ways.
That's a fantastic look at how one seemingly simple component change can really cascade through a whole system. So maybe a final thought for you listening. Think about how these specific, maybe even overlooked aftermarket bumpers offered such unexpected benefits. Durability, looks, enabling other mods, deepening that connection to the original car. What parts or elements in your own hobbies, your own interests, might be sitting there kind of underestimated but holding the potential for a similar transformation if you just, took a deeper dive?